They like the chaos.
They like the chaos. So when you're able to
chaos,
let that chaos reign with
chaos,
let that chaos reign with
chaos,
let that chaos reign with
must reign.
All right, guys. Welcome to another session, another podcast, another live stream here on the Chaos Rain Show. I am Chaos Rain tonight, or today, or in the morning, where you want to ever catch this replay or catch stream at hand. We're gonna look at this conversation that was done by two, I think, American women, Caucasian women, and one black man, about this thing about, schooling women and accountability, to the point that this black man is a therapist that really kind of broke the internet, for lack of better words. But no further ado, let's run this tape and watch the first part. And maybe I might follow through for a second part. We shall see. But no further ado, let's listen in. Let's go. Oh, and guys, I do got a new donation celebration tab for those that pay upwards to 20 and up. You'll see it personally, but only to those that, let's be honest, donate a little bit more bigger than, $5 or $10 to see this one. And trust me, you'll like it. You're gonna like it. You're definitely gonna like it. All right, so. And make sure nothing else is going on around here. All right, we good? Let's go. Let's play this videotape. Enjoy. Hold on, guys. I'm happy.
Enjoy. And hello. Thank you so much, Jeff James. So nice to get to know you. So nice to meet you today. All the way in our neighbor USA. We're so happy that you could come on the pod today. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate you both for welcoming me, and I hope to represent the homeland well.
Well, you're nice little northern neighbors, but obviously no harm done by. We love our neighbors. We do. South or north.
Well, listen, I'm not going to tariff y'all if y'all don't tariff me. So,
oh God, damn.
I hope the volume sounds good, guys. You can hear from the end. If you have any questions, please subscribe to the channel or hit the super chat. And like I said, 20 or more, you get the special super chat. Thanks. Let's go.
Tariffs. What are tariffs, Mel? Tell us all. No, let's not get into it.
It's too depressing.
Well, thank you so much. Obviously, we want to start off with just allowing you to maybe just introduce yourself, tell our audience who you are, what you specialize in, and where they can find you on Instagram or any other socials.
Great. So my personal account is by the St. James. My middle name is Saint. And my actual podcast that I recently launched on Instagram is Ask a Brother. And I'm just looking to get into this podcast space as far as what I do for a living. I am a therapist, licensed professional therapist. I'm trauma trained, certified to help people with PTSD. And I've been working in the field for 10 years, worked in prisons, with courts, schools, and now I run an outpatient program. And we're the largest mental health practice in the city of Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
So I'm pretty busy, but I want to incorporate and figure out how to get into this podcast space, especially in terms of just bringing some more balance to the conversations. I'm noticing that it's really, really dominant with people who have very strong, but oftentimes uninformed views on things. And I think it'd be pretty cool to get some people who aren't looking to maybe just go viral or say something to just demonize one side versus the other. I think it would be pretty cool to kind of get to the next wave or iteration of podcasting and hopefully contribute in some meaningful way.
Well, I had to really educate you, Mr. Jeffrey Jeff. I think that's his name. Most majority of people that's doing this, no matter what the race of the person is or whatever, whether it's an upload or live stream here on YouTube side of things, it is the whole intention to get as much eyeballs as possible, or we like to call go viral, or have your viral moment. So if you're here in regards to educate people, teach people, and to bring harmonious balance, I would say YouTube is not the place to be from what I've observed personally, and I'm just going to be honest. But most people come on here is they want to be entertained. They want to hear conversations. Some that is good, that is bad, even go as far as go at one another. But that's the purpose why most people are on YouTube listening to our content. And I'm just going to keep real with y'all. I don't care how most people watch this and they tune out. That's what it is boiled down to. But if you have something to offer and no one else can offer on YouTube, then yes, please be that person of that beacon of light to bring something innovative or new to the space. Let's continue. Phase. Enjoy.
I love that. I feel like that's a great way to go about podcasting, and welcome to the podcast space.
Yeah.
It is obviously challenging. There's a lot of podcasts out there. But as long as you have, obviously you need an opinion, but it's great to also be informed. And that's why we also bring awesome guys like you to really get the actual information and not just our lovely opinions, obviously. But no, it's good to have an expert.
Yeah, 100%. And the male side of it, because that is, believe it or not, quite tricky to get the male side of it. And it's part of the whole problem that, like, I think you're saying, that's exactly what you're saying. There's too much of one voice and not enough of another. And there's too much extreme voices out there. And we're trying to, in our little tiny corner of the internet, so far trying to change that and just to talk a bit more, really. Yeah.
And it's great that, like, obviously, do you work with mostly men? I know you said you worked with prisons and the law system, and in Philadelphia. What does that look like, really?
And mind you, this man is from a city of brotherly love, so right there, he's well right for this conversation, because he's been around not only black men but pretty much any other man around his vicinity. So this should be a very interesting conversation. I hope you guys will learn something from this. I will. Let's go.
I don't just work primarily with men. I'm pretty all over the place in terms of populations that I serve. I do couples. I have worked historically with children, men, women, single, depressed, anxious, suicidal, you name it. I've worked with all of these different groups. Now I'm at the stage, I guess, of my career where I'm heavily focusing on training therapists to offer better and more high quality care in the inner city. So with prolonged exposure, which is what we're certified in, our therapists are really exposed every week to the worst of things that can happen to people and helping them get their lives back on track. So whether it's gunshots or grapes or molestations or you name it, these people are still here, and we have to figure out a way to help them feel.
And the word, the M word, we call it touching here. We don't want to call it that, But that's not a story. Let's go.
Like they're getting something back in terms of their lives. So my job is to help the therapist help them.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, that's very intense. That's absolutely one end of the human experience scale, like the horrible, very dark end. So you've seen a lot of very difficult stuff. I know you said that you work with couples,
Mhm.
and I know you talked a lot about what's going on today with men and women, and it's something we've seen a lot in our podcast. We've done a lot of episodes on why there's so many single women, why there's so
Well,
many single
I'm
men.
experiencing it as a
Yeah.
single woman.
Yeah.
We
I don't
focus on you the whole rest of
just
this.
focus on me because this must be a therapy session. That would be great.
So- Yeah. And we've done a lot on dating apps, and judging by the comments we get on our social media, there are just so many issues. So
Mhm.
many issues from the male side, from this and I know it's a big buzz thing at the moment. Everyone's talking about toxic masculinity, but
Mhm.
equally, the narcissistic side of feminism, which I don't think enough people talk about. But I wanted to get your opinions on, like, why is everyone single? Why can they not meet? What is going on? What is the big issue?
Yeah, that's a very, very big, broad question. What I tend to do,
Oh, and guys, as you watch the stream, I know I see people coming out. Please give this video a like. Let it be so nice and favorable to the algorithm. No dislikes, please, but likes would be better if you can. I would appreciate it. Anyhow, let's go.
both in serious, potentially contentious conversations, whether it's in therapy or just in platforms like this, I actually start with kind of setting the tone when it comes to letting people know that they have a decision to make of what type of listener they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when there's these types of debates, interactions, or conversations, there's two types of people you can end up being.
Mm-hmm.
One is a person who's primarily focused on whether something is true or not,
Mm-hmm.
and whether or not your life aligns with that, or whether or not you need to grow to get your life more in alignment with said truth, or how said truth makes you feel.
Okay.
And based on how it makes you feel, that determines whether or not you'll accept it. This podcast and these types of conversations, people are going to be very tempted to want to go off of things that's being said and whether or not it's true, or not really about whether it's true or not, but how they're emotionally feeling about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in trying to encourage all of the listeners and people that watch this to let's lean in more so on our logic, our reason, our rationality, and focus on whether or not the things that are being said are actually true about men and true about women in general,
Mm-hmm.
versus necessarily how it makes us feel. And I think that that's important because regardless of who I'm talking to, if they have a particular in group that they consider themselves to be a part of, whether it's men, women, LGBTQ, political, whatever, what tends to happen is when they hear something they don't like about their group, their in group,
Mm-hmm.
they want to be treated as an individual and say, that's not me.
Right.
But when they're talking about the out group, they have no problem generalizing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's important that we know that those two things are typically what we're doing when we're listening to these types of conversations. Am I more focused on whether or not something is true about a particular topic? And two, am I getting triggered because the thing that's being said about my group in general doesn't apply to me personally? These conversations, it may not apply to you on an individual level, but most of what I'll be referencing are things that pretty much can easily be verified. So I just kind of put that disclaimer out just because I know that these type of things are really, really sensitive. But in terms of the research I've looked into and thinking about this stuff for like over a decade, I kind of came to three main points. The first of which was the pill and birth control.
Mm-hmm.
The second was the sexual revolution or sexual liberation movement. And the third was social media. There's obviously way more things that can be listed, but I found that these were the top three major things that changed the overall trajectory of how human beings looked at each other, valued each other, and even the general direction of what's happening to humanity in terms of the replacement birth rates. So yeah, we can expound on those three, but yeah, the pill and birth control, the sexual revolution, and then also social media and the advent of social media, which includes by extension dating apps. I think that those are the three major things, unfortunately, that has rigged the system for a very, very small percentage of men to meet the qualifications for a large body or pool of women. And what both sets of men, the ones that qualify and the ones that don't, there's good and bad things that have come from that as a result. But what I will say is that I think if there's an overarching conclusion as to why so many people, men and women, are still single, still frustrated, can't seem to find happiness, I think we get to a place and point when you've had so many negative experiences, so many failed experiments in your teens and or 20s and or possibly 30s. Both sexes will eventually start to naturally get to a place where they're basically approaching the other group or other side with very, very high skepticism. And they're expecting for that side to give as much as possible and for they themselves to risk as little as possible. So when you're highly distrustful, when you're extremely skeptical, you're going to approach relationships through a very transactional, less patient, less open perspective. You're kind of increasing the chances for the interaction to probably not go well or not work. You're going to probably see flags that are probably neutral. You're going to call them red. You're going to, you get what I'm saying? Like, I think that's what ends up happening is that when we get disappointed, when we get divorced, when we get ghosted, when we get cheated on one too many times, the end result's going to be you're way more skeptical, you're less trusting, you're less open. And now,
let me put a pause for a second to chime in on all that. That's a lot to digest. For those that's watching, this is a lot to digest. But in regards to points that changed the game in regards to interaction, yes, birth control was number one. Two, the feminism, and I think third was, I think he said sexual freedom. I forgot, and I'm not gonna wind back, so I'm not gonna butcher it. But move forward, how he's saying that we now seeing a society here in the West of a transactionalism, or I like to call it transactions. What do they call it? Transaction? Some a special word I forgot, but it'll come back to me. And the dangers of transactional behaviors is one party has to get something from the other party gets, because there has to be an exchange of something. Because there's gonna be time, there's gonna be funds in regards to resource, and really truly, there's gonna be something of cheeks clapping at the end of all this to really seal a deal if you're gonna go the transactional route. And women should know better than this. That men, if they had to go by strictly transactional, if they're not getting what they pay for, they're gonna go somewhere else to get what they pay for. If they pull up their wallet. And unfortunately, a lot of women in the West are not giving in. And there are some dudes that's making an excuse for this. I mean, come on. If a man's paying, especially food and some other things, necessity, unfortunately, you have to be reciprocal at that end. 9/10 of the time, roughly. You can't sit and take the man's money for small things and then just walk away like you're not giving nothing in return. A lot of dudes get frustrated, and they're at the point now, some of them now are not even going to participate in this so-called transactional nonsense. So, really, truly, and I should ask everybody in the chat room that is subscribed to this channel that will respond. Do men really benefit from the transactional ship of today's Western women in this Western world we call America? That's the question I pose for those that is listening. Let's go. Look for your guys right your response to that.
You want the other party to give so much more, and you're trying to give as little as possible
because you don't want to get hurt.
Because you don't want to get hurt. You want to risk as little as possible. So I think between those three things I categorize in the overall conclusion of what I think is the motivating factor for what we're doing, I think that's what ends up happening.
Well, I kind of want to actually go back into what, well, like with that, you said that there's qualified and unqualified men.
Yeah.
What can you expand on that, on what that really means for you?
Obviously it's slightly different when it comes to an individual woman by individual person for sure. But there are certain, I don't want to say universal, but there's usually general attraction triggers that a lot of women will kind of espouse and express. One of them being they typically want a man that's taller than them,
Mhm.
right? So by default, if you're shorter than most women, the pool of women that's even going to see you and you not being visible to them is already going to knock you down quite a bit.
Mhm.
So we can even jump into dating apps because I think this applies to what is it, right? A lot of women are typically looking for in the past. And when I say within the last like 5 years, this incel culture, this red pill thing, it was referenced on adolescence, this 80-20 rule.
Mhm.
A lot of men between their late 20s and early 30s, they don't have to hear it on social media or hear it from some charismatic figure to start to realize and experience this was actually most of what they saw and experienced in their actual own lives. When you were in high school, there was the popular guys and everybody else.
Mhm.
So the popular guys had access to a whole, every other month, it seemed like there was a new girl that potentially was trying to get his attention. It was the jock, it was the good looking guy, it was the athlete, et cetera, et cetera. In high school, you saw this guy who seemed to get an inordinate amount of attention from a lot of the girls. And then you had the quote unquote average guys. And then you had the guys who effectively just were kind of ignored. When you got to college, that typically looked either the same or started to worsen. But what happened with social media is it changed women's expectations and the pool of men that they actually thought they could potentially have access to.
Right.
So what that means is that generationally, 40, 60, 80 years ago, the pool of men that would even know this woman would exist was relatively related to her city or her town.
Yeah.
Now it's a whole campus.
Mhm.
Now it's multiple people from other campuses. Now
Right.
it's national global market. But now, and we could even argue it's a global market that you're dealing with. So as a consequence, her view on optionality has changed because her lens is that, yeah, maybe the guy I'm looking for isn't in my neighborhood, but I can effectively come into contact with any guy on the planet so long as he has social media.
So shouldn't that
Um,
also affect the men as well? Because they have access to all the women in the world now?
Yes, but that typically it splits into two categories. The men that most women say that they want and are attracted to, and the men that don't qualify. And when we say qualify, we can say attraction triggers that includes physical height, a certain amount of money or resources that they can kind of glean based on the type of lifestyle that he's living, the people he's surrounded with. You name it, where in essence, it sounds kind of bad to say, but like physical appearance, height, social cues relating to attraction triggers, and whether or not other women think he's also attractive and other men respect him, that's functionally the markers for whether or not a man's going to be taken seriously, be responded to, engage with multiple women or a lot of women, and potentially get access to no women whatsoever without having to pay for it transactional. That's the reality of it. So, what's happening is I think that things are so skewed with these dating apps. We're looking at all the stats and they're all saying something very similar. Bumble is a great example because my wife and I met through Bumble.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
thank you. We got married about 2 years ago, I think. And our baby was born last summer. And
Oh,
What a success story.
Seriously, Bumble should sponsor you.
They should.
so out of wanting to like I'm so grateful I'm out the game because we joked around when we were first dating and she was first.
I gotta recap what he just said. If you're able to find your loved one on a dating site, you're very fortunate. I think you fall out of a certain percentage of men that are able to find your match, your mate online with no problem. Will that happen for the rest of the 80 or 90% gonna find their mates online? The answer is no. That's not gonna happen. For those that's watching this stream right now, tell me if you guys, that's men and women that's on here watching this, have ever used these dating apps and found a match that you could say this was the one that I could see myself in a long-term relationship or marriage. Let me hear in the chat room. But overall, you know, no person's gonna promote Bumble because I think was it Bumble or Timber? I don't know which app was it. I gotta double check which app was it that's now dealing with heightism. But if you're on those specific apps, you're gonna be lucky if you get any play off. Personally, your best bet, mess around with these low-end apps like Tag or some other sites, you know. But I would not say or recommend that you're gonna find your mate on a dating app. No, that's not happening. That's not happening. But so the question should be asked: does men have it easy now? Now the world's wide open with social media, and they could just go and create a profile or, you know, shoot their shot. Answer is no, because women predominantly, when they find someone that's on their DMs or in the DMs, they always examine that person's profile, and they see that you might be someone that just the average or above average Joe. They will give you the time of day. But if you're just a regular man with a simple social media following, and maybe your social media footprint might look dull, she's not giving you a play, bro. So it's not the same between men and women in regards to the opportunity of getting access to more women. No, it's only can you get access, like literally, and not get denied, or what we like to call access denied. You feel me? All right, let's go. Various.
Hearing about the incel, the red pill, blue pill, this and that. And she asked me about passport bros. And she said, what do you think about this passport bros? Like, what do you, like, what's with these guys? She said, would you have been one if we hadn't met? I said, yep.
Sorry, passport bros? Bros. Passport bros.
Yeah.
What is that?
Passport bros is where men are seeking the option of going abroad to interact and have access to women who, for a variety of reasons, it could be just for recreational sex or tourism. It could be because they want to look for more traditional women. They may want to look for women who aren't nearly as progressive or feminist in nature in comparison to the West. It's a whole host of spectrum of reasons for why men do it. And she had asked me flat out, why would you do it? And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. Between my last relationship and meeting you, dating and trying to date was actually extremely difficult. I'm not a model. I don't make all the money in the world. I don't have the greatest physique. But I got a fair, decent amount of matches and interactions with women. Mm-hmm. The process between trying to get them to respond, then getting them to actually set a time to meet, actually meeting them, and it actually leading towards something was a lot harder than I had realized 10, 15 years ago.
And that's crazy because you are a good looking guy, right? Like,
yeah,
maybe you're not George Clooney, but like, that shouldn't matter, right?
Hold on. I mean, you know, I ain't George Clooney now, but we ain't gonna sit here and act like I'm Shrek. Like, but what it was I was realizing that there was a level of entitlement and arrogance and certain assumptions of what I had to give and offer to people who I don't think realize where we were in comparison to each other of the dating market. So I'm 35 now. So I'm going to give you an example of what this looked like. While on the app, there was two apps I was on, Bumble. And the second app I was on was in the States. We had one called BLK, was black, which is like a lot of black people would get on it. And I was obviously in Philly. And when you get on the plane and land somewhere, the location shifts in the app. And I had to go visit a family member for her 40th birthday in Chicago. And this was right at the time when I like first met my wife, like my now wife, like 2 weeks into us knowing each other, meeting each other.
Oh, for people that know, BLK I think it's one of them online dating apps as well. Did I ever use that app? Let me think. I might have, but that was like years ago. I don't know if that app still exists. And the guy's 35 years of age, looks like he was born roughly either 1989 or 1990, roughly. So this is a middle-aged man. So he lucky to get out of the game now. And one guy writes, they take both. Why not? Yeah. Funny how these two ladies are trying to look serious. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, guy. Let's be honest. For the guy in the chat room, these women are trying to do their thing on the podcast. You know, they gotta look the part. They look a little older. I think they might be pushing 40, late 40s, some. So, you know, the sex appeal could be better. In my opinion, it could be better. I don't know about you, it should be better. All right, let's go.
Each other. And I left from Philly and I had a layover in Atlanta for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left from Atlanta, got to Chicago, got off the plane, walked outside and got in my cousin's car when she came to pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned on my phone and I had 70 matches.
Wow.
70. And I wasn't on the app. I wasn't doing anything. I was in Atlanta for 2 hours and I was in Chicago for maybe 20 minutes. And I had 70 women who liked my profile.
In Chicago.
Between Chicago and Atlanta, the 2 hours in Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
and
Crazy.
20 to 30 minutes in Chicago, I had 70 women. I'm 30 at this point. At that time, I was about 30. And I don't think women realize what that means for all the men who look anything close to me, look better than me, make way more money than me, what their pool, who's on these apps, not for 2 hours or 2.5 hours,
Mm-hmm.
days, weeks, months at a time. I don't think that they actually know. So when you're in that position as a man and you're considered in the top 5, top 10% in most categories,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not coming from a place of arrogance, I don't think that they truly get that the man that they're willing to ignore 90% of men for, the leverage and opportunity and choice that he has.
Right.
So it's a very, very small example
Mm.
of I'm literally hopping on planes and leaving and I'm not doing anything. And I had almost 80 women that initiated contact with me just by dropping in 2 cities.
Mm.
Wow.
And Atlanta's considered the Black capital. Is a lot of African Americans and Black Americans live in Atlanta as well as Chicago. So of course the data was probably skewed to a degree, but that's the reality.
A lot. That's a lot of.
Well, just for being there for such a short amount of time, like
I've heard people say that a lot, actually, that in a weird way, women have made this for men, like we've designed it, modern feminism, that they don't need to have a relationship because all these women, well, why would they want one? But I want to go back to quite a few things that you said, because it's an interesting age difference we have here. So you're 35, Susie's 29.
Before she goes back, let's be clear here. He at least is being honest with himself, saying that knowing that he don't think he's the top tier man, but because of the power of the dating apps, and you just probably, I'm not sure what his profile is or his footprint is, but let's say he's dressed professionally. Yeah, those professional dating apps like Bumble and stuff, they will match you with some pretty decent women if they're not too big. And I'm not sure anybody use Bumble, but I know for a fact those sites, personally, those sites especially, a lot of women are not really a par, maybe subpar below women, because they put too many requirements just to make the women be more favorable on using the app. But if you're a woman that's not really appealing, a dude will match you, but he ain't gonna take it serious. He's gonna blow your back out because he needs, to release, and he's gonna keep pushing. So data apps can be misleading if you're not careful. All right, let's keep going. Fairies.
I'm 52.
30 next week. Want to
She's
cry?
30 next week.
Want to cry?
Yeah. Cry her a river. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
she's 29 and
is,
she's
I
52.
obviously see it from
So the guy that says politically incorrect, you still want to bang that 52 with the nice rack, my dude? Because she is up there. She's like MILF age. She's grandma age. She could probably still take some pipe You know, she can get her cheeks clap out. 52 years old ain't nothing. You know, she gonna pay for the dick though, but you know, she ain't nothing wrong with that. All right, let's keep going. Praise.
Different perspective. You know, I've been married for 25 years. I'm British, so it's a bit different in Europe and the UK. But for me, looking at these comments, so, you know, I think to myself, from the comments you've made, the sexual revolution, the pill. Well, Gen X, all of my friends are on the pill. We're all, you know, sexually revolutionized, shall we say? We weren't, you know, we were already living, you know, more promiscuous lives than our parents, let's put it that way.
Okay.
But all of my friends got married. All of them had careers. They're all educated. You know, they've had children. So, you know, when you're a woman, you have children, you've maybe worked at different paces and rates throughout your career because of children. But they've all managed to find a mate and have a career and have children. Balancing all of those incredibly difficult, but the point is that they've done it. And we dated in real life. So where I met my husband through a friend that worked, I worked with this friend and he worked with this friend, and she kind of matched us up, which is kind of traditionally how it happened. Like a lot of people of my generation met at work, which of course we've eradicated because of Me Too. So, you know, everybody I know in their 50s, 60s, late 40s met at work. You can't do that anymore for fear of something happening. So that knocks out a massive pool of people to meet. So I think to myself, and you were talking about high school, it was the same in my day. You know, there were the handsome guys and the good looking girls and, you know, the people who weren't so attractive. Nothing has actually changed in any of what you've said there, I don't think. Like, you know, people got more dates than others and so on. What's changed is social media and this piece that you're talking about. Like that you can see the possibilities being infinite, apparently. And, you know, and that men see all these girls on Instagram who are all AI generated anyway, but they think they're real and they think there's always something better over their shoulder kind of thing. There's a certain piece of it that seems to me, from my perspective, that has changed. And it's the fact that we don't date in real life. People don't meet in real life situations as much. They do a bit, but not as much.
Yeah.
It's very hard because people are very nervous, and particularly nervous at work.
Yeah.
And particularly men. Men do not want to approach women. They're terrified. And I don't blame them. And so it's the way that we meet and the way that we present ourselves. As human beings, have we actually changed that much between, so you're a millennial, I'm Gen X, you're just a millennial, in terms of levels of promiscuity and levels of career, in levels of stuff like that? I'm not, maybe
Well, she's not really a millennial. She's 29 years of age right now as it stands, right? She is actually a Gen Z for short. So you're having two people that, if you're 52 years of age, that means more than likely they could be your child, the 50-year-old woman, roughly. Because if you're 52 turning 53 this year, I'm not sure when is your birthday, yeah, it makes sense. Math's out. So, all right, let's go.
bit, but not a huge amount. The generation before, yes, there's a big difference. But Gen X to millennial to Gen Z, we've you know, we've all had multiple partners, we've all dated, we've all whatever. It's something that has really changed the key piece, and it must be the internet is the socializing, the apps for one, which obviously didn't exist, and the way people are meeting. I mean, it's just bizarre what it's doing. It's bizarre.
Yes.
To correct her, people are not meeting if they're going through social media. Most people today, and I'm gonna be honest, are dealing with more how's I gonna say this? Especially what they call it. They're being non-sociable. They're being very antisocial with the help of social media today. And people can correct me if I'm right or wrong, but you're being less sociable because you're on the digital space. You're texting, you're hitting DMs, you're not meeting in person, you're not having a conversation. So you're really being less sociable. That's how it is. So I disagree with you. We're not being more social. We're being more or less sociable. Social media is just an easy crutch to avoid the the in-person conversation. All right, let's keep continuing.
I agree with you that two of the three things I listed obviously existed during your time, but it did open the door and started something that led to what we got to today.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, what I would argue is, and I agree with you about the social media component, but reevaluate if the social media opened up the door in terms of our views and perspectives on optionality. If the sexual revolution and sexual liberation either continued, what did that look like and mean for all the countless couples and individuals and families where it didn't work?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what were the ramifications and consequences of the increase in single parent homes,
Mm-hmm.
and the increase of people not knowing who their father was, and the increase of 1 in 3 paternity tests in the States specifically. People they can't identify who the biological father was.
Really? 1 in 3?
1 in 3. And that's who's tested. So reimagine, you could do the math on all of that. So the point you make, and then lastly, as the push from the 60s, 70s, and 80s on of more and more women going into the workforce and getting more educated increased, the pill and birth control convinced 2 generations of women to push and prolong when it is that they should start thinking about children. And the problem was that as they simultaneously did that, they did not realize that when they decide, well, it's time for me to slow down, it's time for me to settle down, it's time for me to get serious about the screening process of who I'm going to cohabitate with, have sex with, potentially do life with long term, the competition is now different.
Mm-hmm.
So it hitting the window of when you're in high school or college, when it first kind of started, this was still a ever growing thing. The full effects of it now we're seeing post 2000.
Right.
So that's really what obviously social media is the third big mega piece that really changes it all, but it actually also impacts all these other factors. So now, for instance, let's take birth control, recreational sex, and social media. What does that do to a young girl or woman's brain about seeing all these people traveling, seeing all these people purchasing all these things and all these lived experiences they want to have before they have children? And their belief system is, I can keep pushing the motherhood thing further and further down. I'll get to it 30, 32, 34, 36, modern medicine. This celebrity said that they had a kid at 38 or 42. I can get to it when I'm ready. And
well, to give you an answer to that, Mr. Jeff Jeffries, is what happens when women see the so-called delusion of what they want to call a more exciting, better life is actually false propaganda. Because how is it more exciting that you're able to travel, do this constantly, and then do this for years and years, and don't know when it's time to really carry on a lineage, which you must procreate and have children and be a mother to a degree and carry forth your legacy and your genes forward. A lot of women don't think on this, and never will think on this or prioritize it, is because they've been fed a spoon-feed lie that by waiting longer, they think that the greater access to certain men they want, because they want to pick at the end of the day, is going to be there. And the answer to a lot of women that's watching a lot of these social media videos that's promoting that nonsense, they're not really seeing the forest between the trees. What happens if you wait this long and then you don't, let's say, put your eggs in a freezer? What chance are that you're going to go through the natural order of things? Like, how can I say this? You're getting screwed, a man busting you, and then you're a few months pregnant. Once you take away that option, you don't really have nothing. And most likely, some dudes will still deal with you because you have the box. But overall, if they're really serious about the legacy, they're going to have their actual woman that's fertile enough to proceed forward. They're not going to do that. This is that simple. All right, guys, let's keep going. Various.
By the time a lot of them are quote unquote ready, the rules aren't the same. And I'm going to say something that I've heard, and I'm sure you two may have heard about the mountaintop analogy in terms of the dating marketplace. Women start at the top, and that's the reality. When you turn 18, in terms of the desirability factor,
The
you start,
gatekeepers of sex.
you start at the top. The moment you turn 18, you didn't have to do anything. You just had to exist. You have inherent value in the dating market with other teenagers, with men in their 20s, men in their 30s, men in their 40s. And that run from 18 to 25 is when you're probably going to get the biggest pool of men younger than you and older than you that's going to be interested in wanting to do life with you, and potentially for the reason of you being potentially the mother of their children.
I just want to chime in here
Yeah.
just because, since like being the young one who's single.
Yes, the young single one.
The young single one. Obviously, I'm not really on the app because I have just given up. Just for now, I'm just like over it. And I have actually, I've not really been on birth control in my life, like here and there, and then I didn't like it, and so I use condoms, and that's what works for me. But I do find it really interesting, obviously, like that you're saying, you know, like I know the divorce rate is like 52%, right? If people are getting divorced. But that means that people are getting married when they're younger and like possibly having children when they're younger.
No.
You're saying that's not happening?
No, there's no correlation between the divorce rate versus when people are actually getting married. There's marriages lasting 2 years. There's marriages lasting 4 years. People are getting married at 25 and getting divorced by 29. There's not really a causal or correlated link to that. And that's the problem, is it's really the illusion of time. It's the illusion of time. And the difference is, when I was talking about that mountaintop, that 18-year-old boy has functionally nothing to offer most women that are single. He's the one that has the time.
Yeah, that's right.
When the magic number for both sexes is 30. Because that's the time, if he didn't get himself in a situation where he has to pay a lot of money out in alimony or child support, if he's not incarcerated, if he's been steadily increasing his value just naturally with work and making more money and building his body and his brand up. At 30, this is what happens. One side, most desirability with the greatest pool of men, when she hits 30, I'm going to throw out a number. Let's say that's cut in half.
Right.
Let's say that's still attractive. She's still desired. There's still a lot of people that want her, but now her competition is everybody that's younger than her, and everybody that's her age, and everybody that's a little bit older than her that potentially looks better than her and potentially has a better attitude than her and less negative experiences with men.
For sure. I mean, I'm experiencing it. Like, I see exactly what you're saying. Like, not that I'm right now even looking for a relationship, but like, there is the fact that I know a lot of my friends who are in their early 30s, let's say, and they are finding it very hard to find a boyfriend. Like, let's say they broke up with their boyfriend like 2 years ago, and they're trying to find a partner. It's very, very hard. But I'm also finding, I don't know, maybe you have an experience with men around, like, obviously your age. I find that a lot of those men who are in relationships aren't happy actually with their relationships, and a lot of them are,
happy or unhappy?
Unhappy. Like, a lot of them are cheating, or they're just not giving what they should to their partner. What is that with men? And obviously, like, I don't know if they're going to get divorced, like if there's going to be a bigger divorce right now because of all of these, social media apps. It's a lot, easier to find someone else, or even just like, Ashley Madison, someone to your house. Like, we're getting, and I'm now seeing it where, like, I'm like, why would I want to even get into a relationship if most of these guys are cheating on their wives, right?
Okay. I'll answer that, and then we can just jump straight into men cheating and why they do it, because it sounds very relevant. The first.
Well, it goes to show you that you ladies don't risk nothing. You want the rewards now and don't want no consequence, or how it takes to get to those awards. That is delusion. If the world was perfect, maybe you could have that mindset, but the world is not perfect. And I think society does is they condition allow women to stay in a childlike mentality, or what they call unarrested development. You have to take the world as it is, rather good or bad, and keep pushing through it. That's how things gonna change, especially in your lives. If you sit there and cry, woes me, also, and have a scarcity mindset, time I say your man might cheat, man, you're not getting far out, man. This is that honest truth. It's the honest truth, man. Anyhow, let's keep going.
First thing is, I can't speak to the UK, Canada, Australia, and other westernized cultures or countries in terms of like some of their rates for divorce or marriage, or et cetera. Well, what I will say in the States is 70% of all divorces are initiated by women.
Yeah.
80% if she's college educated. So regardless of level of happiness, for whatever reason, men aren't typically, on average, initiating the divorce. That doesn't mean that they're all happy. That doesn't mean that they're all faithful. It just means that for whatever reason, that's not their go-to when they are unhappy. Now, how to make up for that unhappiness? They can stay at work longer. They can find other hobbies with friends. They can look for outsourcing the things that they feel their partner isn't doing with other women. There's a whole host of reasons for why men might ideally want to stay or not break up their home or have their kids moving between households. There just is other factors that's probably in their heads for why it is that they're choosing to stay. In the last podcast I met with the mom advocate, I talked to her about the happiness factor not really being something historically throughout almost all of human civilizations when it came to marriage. That really wasn't a factor. And now it is. And unfortunately, you can't perpetually be happy. You can't always be happy. And you have a group that when they're unhappy, you have to kind of ask them. And I've even asked women this directly. If you have to choose between your own happiness or the happiness of your entire family, which do you choose? A lot of them are going to say their own happiness.
A lot of men or a lot of women? Sorry.
A lot of women are going
Wow.
to say their own happiness. But when you ask men, the data speaks for itself. They'll stay in unhappy situations for the sake of the kids, for the sake of finances, for the sake of image, for the sake of status or reputation, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't mean that they don't do things on the side to supplement that, but their view of happiness isn't nearly as important to them as it is to a lot of women in the modern age.
I thought it would be opposite. That's so interesting.
No, that's why women aren't leaving happy marriages.
Yeah.
They're leaving ones when they're unhappy.
The statistics are that married men are the happiest group and single women are happy. Like married women are not as happy as married men. Like married men are more happier than married women.
So the funny thing about that stat, and it's threefold that I'll say with that. One, you have to wonder when in women's lives are they answering that question?
Sure.
When they're married? Because I envision that when they're answering that question throughout the duration of their marriage probably matters. I think because statistically speaking, they experience a fuller range of emotions, and neuroticism seems to express itself more within the female population. It's not unusual to me to hear the ups and downs of happiness, sad, ecstatic, depressed amongst talking with women. That's just not that's not strange to me in my field of mental health and psychology, honestly. And on the flip side, I find it ironic that in the age where women are using they're diagnosed the most with anxiety, the most with depression, the most psychiatric medication services in that era, many of which are doing when they're actually single. The self-reporting data doesn't do anything for me. It's basically what I'm saying. The data, the evidence, the constant frequent disappointment of not being able to find an adequate partner, the constant need to overspend to supplement and make up for the lives that they can't experience with someone else, the high rates of student loan debt in the US, the high consumer debt amongst women in the US. I'm sorry, like, they can self-report all they want about how happy they are. They'll trade places in a heartbeat for the woman that's married that says that she's so quote unquote unhappy. And clearly in the US, we have no problem initiating and filing for divorce. So it's one of those things where I'm not saying people are liars. What I am saying is that I think that it's a multivariate analysis that probably needs to take place, and that happiness is probably more on a scale than necessarily happy or not happy. So that's, my honest assessment. And I think that I don't put all this stock in it's the women who aren't with men that are doing the best and happiest in life. And I don't even argue the opposite, that it's only the women who can find a good man that they're all happy and they have no complaints. I think you're going to have complaints whether you're single or whether you're living with somebody. Either you sick of yourself or you sick of somebody else. So that's what it is. Yeah.
I mean, surely, most of the divorces, though, are initiated by women is really because women can now be self-sufficient in the sense that economically, to a degree, you can figure out something sexually. You don't need a man to buy a house, compared to, say, my grandmother's generation, who, in fact, my grandmother had to get married because she was pregnant. That doesn't exist anymore. So you don't have to marry a man if you want a child, and you don't have to marry a man if you want to have a house and a materialistically successful life. And so that's sort of emasculated men to a degree. What is their role? What are they? And the thing that I find strange is I find men in their 50s.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. I'm trying to keep composed here. Hope you guys liking the stream so far. Make sure to hit the like button, share the stream, participate. You know how we are. You know how we do it. Likes are free like always. I'm just gonna keep playing. I'm gonna try to stay up as much as possible. Let's go and stream.
50s, or men that I know in their 50s and older, pretty secure in who they are. They've had families. I'd say I personally know a lot of successful men. They've had families. They've done well financially. They're not all happy in their marriages. They definitely don't hate women. Versus the young.
Now that comment right there, I like that comment by D-Rock. I'm gonna put Oates. Women have the most to gain from divorce. That's why they choose it more. They're greedy. Yeah, and very greedy. And they know that they gain something out of it. See, if you think about D-Rock, you ever notice women that got more and got something to maybe lose? You notice a lot of them don't get married at all. You ever notice that? And the reason being because they know saying that if they got more than a dude, then obviously dude's gonna get her purse. And they don't want to give up the purse, so they want to make sure say you make more than me. So anytime I'm ready, I'll pull the plug and get your wallet. I tell you, these women wicked, very wicked. All right, let's go.
Younger generation, and these are men who also didn't. I'm talking about men in their 50s. They didn't grow up in this Me Too thing, so they're not afraid of women. But they understand the feminist movement. And then you compare it with men, sort of 25 to 35 and younger, that sort of younger Gen Z or young millennial age. And there's a huge amount of hatred for women, not understanding feminism or where it came from, and not understanding. And I think this is where there's a disconnect for me, is that young men, I think, are paying for the sins of their fathers, right? So the way that older men behave, younger men are now having to pay that. And they don't get it because they didn't grow up in that era. Whereas men sort of in their 50s understand. They understand that era. They understand what women went through in the workplace. There were no rules and laws, and I certainly lived that. And that young women, in turn, didn't live through what I had to live through, very misogynistic work environments where there were no rules and laws, and men definitely stepped over many boundaries. Young women today, none of them have lived through that. Yet they are behaving as if they grew up in my generation. And the young men, so they're confused because they're not behaving according to what their experience is. And the young men are like, hang on a second, why am I paying for what my great grandfather did or father did or whatever? And so the sort of behavior between both of the genders is so confused. I mean, that's what I see. Is it's just young men saying, hang on, I didn't do any of this shit. I wasn't gross. I didn't do stuff that I shouldn't have done that was inappropriate and blah, blah, blah. But young women are blaming them for that when they didn't grow up in that culture. And that makes no sense at all. And then you add a layer on top of that women don't need men financially. I mean, of course it's better. I attest to that. I work, my husband works. It's way better. It's way better if you're happy and you work and are married and you're in a team and you go forward in life together. But it's not essential, whereas it used to be historically. And so I think it's put men in this very weird space. And we've talked about it a lot, like at the beginning of the conversation about incel, red pill, blue pill, and all of that. And this real rise in toxic masculinity amongst young men, this hatred of women, that like they absolutely like it's full on rage.
And we also like obviously being women and having a podcast where we're very open about our opinions. You know, we see it like real time on our comments, on our everything, like on the messages we get, we see it. And so obviously, like, I know you're not saying that's not happening, and women and men are very much to blame on both sides of why this is happening. And I know we had brought up adolescence, and obviously this culture. What are you thinking about?
Where's it going?
Thing?
Yeah, I see. This is where the podcast is going to definitely.
You know, they keep talking about this stupid movie or this stupid documentary called Atlas. Has anybody watched that thing called Atlas? I haven't watched. I heard about that crap. I heard too much weird things about that it was promoting some false information about men today. I mean, should I go look into that Atlas and nonsense? I want to hear from the chat room. Let me see. All right. Let me take a look at the chat room right now because y'all wrote something. All right. I could probably pull this up. And please, guys, support the channel. You know, hit the super chat. You know, support the nice channel. You know, also if you put 20 more, you get a special super chat donation. All right, exactly. I wonder how many marriages where the women earn more money if they still initiate the divorce more on average. Probably not. These statistics never account for that, and you know, it never going to account for that. And let me tell you why it never accounts for that. Because they know said women knows the rules and the game, how it's been played in regards to marriage and divorce. They know it's not in their favor if they make more than the man. That's why 9 tenths of the time, if you're going to deal the marriage game, if you're going to play around with it, it's better to be equally yoked with your partner or with your future wife. Anytime you make a little bit more than her and she gets a whiff of it, she's gonna take your ass to the cleaners, my dude. Like literally, she's gonna clean you out real nice. And while she cleans out, she's gonna be where her side dude or dude that she's already being a throat goat next in line to enjoy the rewards with your own wallet, of course. It's kind of wicked. Very wicked. All right. Hold on, I think somebody else wrote some. Let me check. All right. Average Man Podcast writes, they love calling red pill, incels are toxic, but does an incel have better discipline with his body than in women for the streets? That's a very good question. That's a good question. I'm going to have to think on that one. Yeah, we're going to have to think on that one. Let's keep going. Fair use. And guys, support channel. Hit the cash up, super. Let's go.
Definitely become a lot more controversial with some of the things I'm going to say. But Melanie, I'm going to agree with you 100% about from the male lens and the reaction about modern men are being made to pay for the sins of a patriarchy that they're no longer a part of. That is for a lot of men, this visceral reaction is the world and environment that their fathers or grandfathers were able to experience, were able to afford, were able to have access to, has been squeezed and reduced to a very, very small pool of men. And that's the reality. And that is a consequence of women changing the terms of what it was required for a man to have access to a woman sexually, in order to get a wife, in order to have a child, in order to start a family, in order to not be a genetic dead end. I'm going to give an example personally, and I hope that this helps just at least to humanize, not excuse, but humanize where some of these unchecked emotions from men are probably coming from. My parents, when I was young, I believe I was in 3rd grade, we moved from Philadelphia to South New Jersey, in Willingboro, as in the suburbs. And that home, 3-bed, 2.5 bath, huge front yard, side yard, backyard, was a house on the corner. That house at the time when they got it was probably like $120,000. And when they first moved, my mom wasn't even working. In order for me to get a comparable home like that, I have to make what both my parents made combined.
Oh yeah.
And in order for me to have a wedding like they had a wedding, how much do I have to make and spend?
For sure.
In order for me to get a degree, in order to make the money, how much debt do I have to go into? So there's an entirely different world of expectations that's being placed on a generation of men. So when the cost of living is higher, when the expectations are now elevated to a level it's never been in human history for any man,
Yeah.
it's the highest it's ever going to be for anybody in the Western culture right now. And your sexual counterparts are also making money, also entering into the workforce, and they unknowingly, or maybe knowingly, in the process of fighting for equality, fighting for their own liberation, getting access to education and money and resources, you doubled the tax base and you doubled the workforce and you stagnated wages for the men who were still expected to do this.
Yeah.
It came with it. So the ultra capitalists here in the States, the Rockefellers and other groups, that was a very subversive. They funded the very groups that they told women, this is the groups that are your advocates. They funded them. So as you left the home, as you took on student loan debt, you prolonged the period where you normally would have been probably focusing on starting a family. When you come back out, your expectations don't go lower. They go higher. When you went into college, you were maybe not making much of any money. When you come out of college, between the student loan debt in the States and the actual salary you're making, the pool of men that even qualifies is significantly reduced. What are you going to do with all of these men?
Yeah.
That's now being pushed to the margins and to the side. And we're not saying push to the side like women are kind of, they just play around a little bit. We go out on dates every now and then, we flirt every now and then. They are viewed as zeros, nobodies, invisible.
And that is the point of the society you live in today. They're trying to eliminate as much competition as possible. And only do that, you have to, by default, prioritize women to a degree where they think they have the pickings and they can wait longer. Be on what we like to call, and you guys know what I'm about to play, be on the probacious carousel. And really, when you as late on that carousel for as long as you could ride it out, there's a consequence. And a lot of men are going to be more invisible. Now, because of invisibility, what has happened, men have, by default, checked out in a good or bad way. Nonetheless, they have checked out and they want to either do two options. Either going to go the celibacy, the monk, which I don't recommend, but there even I find young men now doing monk mode. I don't know how it's possible. Or you can go outside your home base, your country, and go find some poontang and maybe wife over there. Nonetheless, not a lot of men nowadays are not gonna sit there going to take a bad deal, and it's proven evident. So this man, Jeffrey Jeffries, is saying some good stuff. Let's continue.
And the numbers will fluctuate depending on the study, but a large percentage of women make 80K, 100K, 125K, and date a man is making half that.
Yeah,
For sure.
so very few.
And if you plot him in any other point in human history, he'd have a wife and 6 kids, a home that's paid on, and maybe 1 or even 2 vehicles.
Yeah.
So you're taking modern adaptations, modern expectations, and being shocked when environments that's been very hostile to men, they've equated the toxic, negative things that men can do and projected that onto anything pertaining to be a distinction between men and women. That's how it feels. That's how it comes off. I think you both have referenced it at one point about this concept of toxic masculinity. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
There's toxic masculinity. I'm going to say it as clear as I can. Masculinity and femininity are descriptions of positive behaviors in terms of care, nurture, provision, and protection. That's what it is. That's what being masculine means. That's what being feminine means. Either you're very nurturing and protecting, or you're doing provision and protection. Like that's what it means to be ultra feminine or masculine. The actual terms, that's what they mean.
Yeah,
they are in the affirmative. They are positive things. So when you're calling something a toxic version of it, there's literally is an oxymoron. It's toxic people. There's men that do toxic things. There's women that do toxic things. But when a man steps outside of being a masculine man in a particular scenario, that's not a version of masculinity. He's just being a toxic individual. He's being a toxic man, but that's not a toxic masculinity. Same thing with, there's no toxic femininity. Either you're feminine or you're not. Either you're masculine.
Yeah, so I know where people keep calling these ladies they're toxic. No, either you're feminine or not. If you're the opposite of feminine, you're going to operate in a masculine manner. It's just that simple. Simple as that. All right, let's continue.
Masculine or you're not.
Right.
So, unfortunately, what's happening is these boys, and it's so pervasive. It starts in grade school all the way through the latter years, all the way through college. These are environments that overcorrected, and they switched from, we're in a patriarchal system where we need to factor and prioritize how men feel and men's perspectives on these things, and it overcorrected. This is why in the States, millions and millions of young boys are being diagnosed with ADHD and being put on psychiatric medication.
Right. It's crazy.
Because they're in a system that prioritizes how girls tend to operate, move, function, and think, versus any psychologist worth their salt would know that prepubescent boys and even boys going through puberty, how much extracurricular activity they need, how many various forms of expression they need, how their way of bonding is often physical in nature, how there's a roasting process of just in normal communication, and how that's designed to kind of build up his ability to be able to deal with the world when school is done. So you're shunning, you're penalizing, you're punishing so much of what it means to be a boy and a man. You're having a huge market of people who are getting divorces and are now raising these boys with no father influence. Don't even talk about and ask about what's happened in the Black community. And then you're shocked when there's all this resentment and anger. What did you think was going to happen if you said all men are dogs and they're not needed and we're questioning whether or not men are valuable, and a huge percentage of homes, father isn't even involved, or, you know, like it just, at some level, you have to acknowledge, like, it makes sense why there's so much anger and resentment. My stance when I talk to young men or men, period, is, so what are you going to do about it?
And right there, that's the role of a lot of therapists. You're going to lay out your problems, right? And in return, they're going to point the fingers back at you, men. What you going to do about it? That's a direct question that deserves a direct answer. And you know what, men? Let's be honest. Either you sink or swim. That's your only option. Or you could swim somewhere else on another land. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do about it? And that's a very much a needed question. And that question should be asked constantly. But, not every person has the answers, but, I would like to know what most men would do about it. I'm not sure it's possible. If do me a favor, Sankofa, since you're more of the person that watch my content a lot, try to do some digging, find where I could find him directly, and I'll see what I could do. Is that fair? Yes, that's the whole point. Yes, observe effects. How about you just being honest and caring without power and control, respect and deep understanding? Yes, of course. All right, let's go.
Because the reality is, any client that comes in, what if I was to tell you, you don't have any control over anybody else? The market's the market. Women are women. Their standards are their standards. You can cry about it. You can be depressed about it. You can avoid it. Or you can look in the mirror and say, I don't match up to most of the things that most women want. And I can either do something about it or nothing about it. Mm-hmm. And if you want to do something about it, we can come up with a treatment plan for the next 6 weeks, 6 months of how you can radically improve yourself, how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, your motivation, your body, your health, putting you in certain scenarios where you're going to build up the experience you need to feel more confident and comfortable, build up your career and resume. And I promise you, you're probably going to have significantly different outcomes. I've seen a whole lot of ugly short men with some beautiful women.
Absolutely.
I've seen it.
We love a short king.
But what he did was he put the work in so that he had the options. So the incel culture is based on men or young boys that are extremely frustrated and angry about not so much the access to sex, because they can go and outsource and pay for that. Sure. It's actually the lack of feeling someone is attracted to you as a person. Mm-hmm. It's that, and a couple part, it's not just the frustration with the lack of attraction from the opposite sex, like nobody wants me, nobody values me. It's also the second part, the unwillingness to do something about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. So that pool of young boys or men, when they're surrounding themselves by people who talk this way, that are super negative, that's constantly downing and saying the market's unfair, women have changed, what's wrong with them? Why do I got to make 6 figures in order for them to even go on date? Like, what the heck is going on? While those of us as men learn the game and realize don't hate the game, learn the game and get in, you got other players or people who are sitting on a sideline so pissed off that they're not getting any starting time. Mm-hmm. If you're watching a basketball game, if you're watching a soccer game, you got to put in the work in practice. You got to work with a coach. You have to work on your own. You got to work on your coordination, your speed. You got to build up your muscle mass. You have to put in the work to justify you getting the playing time to get on the field and or the court. Mm-hmm. The incels, they're at a space either because of exposure, not working with men like myself or people like myself, where they don't know that much of what they're struggling and dealing with is the consequence that women have changed. Mm-hmm. We are in modernity, but also an unwillingness to look in the mirror of things they need to change internally. So that's actually what's going on.
All right, that's the end of the first part of this stream. Sankofa, you still there? I could drop the call link as you come up since you witnessed enough of the stream. And personally, some men will adapt. Now, should you make six figures just to get a woman in here in the United States? No, not necessary. That's delusional talk. I mean, you should make yourself appealing for a certain type of woman. But if you want just sex, I mean, you might have to do some other things. You might have to lie a little bit. You might have to do some other, mischievous deeds, maybe, possibly. But really, true, you should know what you want at the end of the day as a adult male, man. And I think most men nowadays, you gotta really come to grips with what really you really want. 1 second. One second. As you know, I'm just looking for something right now. If you're not there, Sankofa, I might just call it night. Oh, you do? All right, let me see. I'll put the link anyway. All right, post the link. Really, truly, he has counseled a lot of young men and men, and I know for most men today they're not gonna waste their time really compete in this type of marketplace if they know the possibility that you're gonna lose your money. It's not really worth it in the long run. So really, truly, the market doesn't really offer much for a lot of men, modern above modern men, or below average and above average men. You're better off just taking your stuff elsewhere. Personally, hold on, let me check it. Oh, let me. Damn, I don't know what the happened to my screen. Hold on, guys. I'm trying to see something because. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, personally. In my opinion, I don't know what's going to happen. I think most likely at the end of the day, a lot of men are gonna make the harsh decision. I think most, and the harsh decision is they're just gonna tap out, because it's not worth the squeeze. And I'm sorry to say this, but women have made it very bad for a lot of men today. For the call link, I'm not sure if it's an actual link. If you see the link, you might have to type it up if you see it, because this is on a different device. So for Sankofa or anybody want to come up, come up now. I'm only gonna be here for a few more minutes. Overall, this Jeffrey Jeff did a very good job in the first half. I think with the next part of this, two-part, we'll look more into deep about what are men actual options and why women should really be honest and accept that man's gonna have other women, no matter his circumstance. Which a lot of women, the women that you see on the panel, they're pretty much reasonable women because some of them are from the UK, so they understand how things are going. They're not the type of women that you around that's going to be more opposing, if I like to say. Very much opposing. They're there listening and learning and taking notes, which I respect. And we need more women like that. Don't be too much opposition. Just sit there and learn and listen in. That's the best way you're gonna learn. That's the best way you're gonna learn. besides being divisive, they were never divided. Especially the woman that is 52, maybe about to be 52, going on 53. She was very much open-minded. She wanted to have these discussions because she knew the importance of, if we want to see change, we got to do something different. So, like I said, I'm looking forward for, to another stream of this. I'm definitely looking forward for this. If those that caught this stream, thank y'all for listening. But those that really truly want to really give a real appreciation, you can always give the thanks donation if you feel so. I'm looking forward to hearing y'all thoughts on this. For those that saw this either for the first time or seen this before, what's your views on therapist Jeffries? I think that's his name. And I don't know. I'll go back and find his name, so you guys know, because I don't want to butcher the man's name. But let me find his name. Let me find his name. 1 second. Jeff James. My fault. His name is Jeff James, guys. So that's his name, Jeff James. So I'm looking forward to what type of podcast he has in store since he's now in the podcast arena. I'm looking forward for that. All right, that's it. Thank y'all for listening to today's stream. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow me on my social media links. Follow me on Twitter at ChaosReign7, Facebook, Eric Ray on Facebook. Join my Discord servers. Follow me on Rumble, CRain23 on Rumble. And last but not least, become a member of the Chaos Reign Show. Membership always got perks. You know what I mean? And till next time, guys. And I mean till next time. The Chaos Reign!
They like the chaos.
They like the chaos. So when you're able to
The chaos.
let that chaos reign with,
The chaos.
let that chaos reign with,
The chaos.
let that chaos reign with,
Must reign.